Hello everyone, my name is Gerard Furi, and today I would like to share my opinion on conspiracy theories. So that wooden statue of mine, which I just showed, is called a Garuda. It is from the Hindu tradition, and it is actually a protector deity of sorts. I will talk about this a little bit more in a few minutes, but first I very quickly want to say that in the comments section of this video, I'm just going to delete any hurtful or insulting comments because that's not what we are about here. What I really want to do is add some moderation to this topic, but in particular I am addressing people who are very interested in conspiracy theories as part of their life, and I would suggest that this isn't the most healthy thing to get one's mind totally twisted into. Yet at the same time, there is a very strong truth and reality to the theme of conspiracy theories, which I don't think we should ignore. Someone who's just, we can say, discovered conspiracy theories, telling them that it's all silly or stupid even, I don't think that's very effective or good, because there is some element of truth there. So what is the element of truth that a conspiracy theorist is actually seeing for themselves? What I would suggest, not in every single case, but for a vast amount of people that are getting started in spirituality, they start to have all sorts of inner awakenings within themselves. And these awakenings can be of beautiful dimensions, like how beautiful the world is, how everything is perfect. You might have experiences of God and bliss. Those are fantastic. You could also have other sorts of awakenings like the intellect, or in Hinduism, there's a concept of Saraswati, this very pure, abstract, divine, motherly quality of reality. But then at the same time, you can have awakenings of the dark energies. You can call these many things. You can say occult energy, or Baalistic energy, or Goetic energy, Lord of the Flies type of energies, and energies of the powers. When you have these awakenings, you start to see those energies, first of all, within yourself, but also, most of the time it seems, people start to notice those dark spiritual energies. They see that in the outside world. And to many, many people, when they first have that type of awakening, it can seem overwhelming. They see darkness in the world everywhere. And this is particularly common in Western countries because, generally speaking, people have easy lives, protected from these extremely dark energies, but at some point they awaken to it. And really the little complication there is that this can overwhelm the mind and people start to see darkness everywhere. So let's look at my notes here. Point 3 is coming back now to the Garuda, which I showed earlier. My point with showing this image is that it is a deity, it is an aspect of God. In this particular case, we can just think of God as goodness. And this deity is very fierce. This deity of the Garuda, it's like a very fierce bird, obviously. It is the mount, or the animal, that God rides, the God in the form of Vishnu. Now, we don't need to go too deep into the Hindu tradition here, but Vishnu, in particular, he is the God that very often comes to earth to destroy evil and to bring balance back to the world. When evil becomes too strong, Vishnu comes and destroys that evil. And in a similar way, Garuda, he is a very fierce energy and he protects. This is why in Bali, these fierce images are very often put on the outside of a house. And it is believed that spiritually it keeps negative energies away, and maybe on psychological wavelength as well, it could stop robbers coming in there. I think there is something to that these protector deities have some real spiritual effect, and Garuda can be fantastic to use for something like that. Not just Garuda, spirituality in general is filled with fierce protector energies. But the point here is that an aspect of God, an aspect of goodness, is actually to destroy or kill evil in the world. And this is a part of conspiracy theories. When people start to see evil in the world, they want to take action. They want to stop that atrocity happening. And 100% atrocities do happen in the world. I myself, I come from Africa. That's where I was born and raised. So maybe I've been more exposed to the really dark realities of life. And, just as a very small example, we had to be raised as children there to be very careful of kidnappings. Because kidnappings, ransoms, and other things which we don't want to even imagine right now do happen to children. And even saying that makes my body feel really uncomfortable. I had sort of shivers or shudders in my spine thinking about those things. But it's a very sad reality that such things do happen. But as a godly energy within us, we want to stop that whenever we can. The problem is that we don't want to be seeing this negative dark energy everywhere in the world. What I would strongly suggest for you, and for myself, I live by this, is when we hear, let's just roughly call it a conspiracy theory of some kind, we don't want to be fooled or by hearsay. Hearsay being that you just heard someone say it, there's no actual solid evidence for it. I would encourage you to have an attitude like a judge in a court of law. I mean, actually it's like a jury, but let's just say a judge here. Your job is very serious. If someone is bringing a serious accusation to a judge, you need to decide, is there actual evidence that that crime happened or not? And hearsay isn't evidence. Now, something I've seen many times, and even in myself I see that temptation, is a friend of yours says, I heard that this and this conspiracy happened. And then I just hear that. Then I go to a different friend and I say, perhaps, that I heard that so-and-so conspiracy happened. I would suggest we strongly stop that hearsay chain of effect. Unless there's strong evidence for your own eyes to see, like a judge in a court of law, strong evidence, we shouldn't go spreading rumors. We shouldn't go spreading gossip or hearsay. And there's a very serious reason why I'm saying that. The thing is, this is a childhood story. I learned it when I was under 10 years old, and I don't want to bore you by repeating the whole story, but there's this famous parable of the boy that cried wolf. I'm sure you've heard it before. Maybe you haven't. If you haven't, you can Google it. But the point is, if people are shouting wolf, there's a wolf eating the sheep. If people shout that as a false alarm, the alarm starts losing its effect. And this is very real in the conspiracy theory culture. So much fingers are being pointed at everyone, including seemingly good people. But any political figure, any powerful figure will have fingers pointed at them saying they did this and they did that. And what that does, because there's fingers pointing in all directions with all sorts of accusations, is whenever a serious or actual accusation comes up, people don't even pay attention because it has no merit. It's just the 1001st false alarm, but maybe it's not a false alarm. But that's why I would strongly suggest that you only say things that there's strong evidence for. Otherwise, we're just crying wolf too often. So, what I want for you, if you can, to recognize as well, when you're hearing a conspiracy theory, is there are 4 types of fuel or 4 types of emotion within the body that gets activated. And this is why we tend to believe conspiracy theories, even when there's no good evidence. So let's just take for a wild example. This is a little bit of a funny conspiracy theory, so I'll use this. Some of my friends, they have spouted the conspiracy theory that Joe Biden is a clone of sorts. Now, why would that be? What's the relevance? It's a bit, vague and it doesn't make sense. But if you hear something like that, that Joe Biden is X and X, he did so and so, First of all, there's these 4 qualities that come up within the human being. The first one is distrust. Okay? Human beings, we have distrust because we've all been burnt in life and it's a natural part of being a human being. We don't want to get scammed. But you might see someone like Joe Biden and just for whatever reason, maybe he's not the best looking person because he's getting a bit older, or perhaps there's some interviews of him saying awkward things. And who knows, maybe Joe Biden, maybe he's even into BDSM and weird energies. I don't know. But the point is, if someone says a conspiracy theory about Joe Biden, my natural mistrust of people comes up, and that can attach to Joe. And that could be rightfully or not, because people can point a finger at anyone, and then that mistrust can come up. So let's just reverse positions here to be a little bit fun and creative. Let's say you were just a person that talks publicly. I sort of talk publicly, I'm a YouTuber. If people start pointing fingers at me and saying really nasty things like I'm part of the Illuminati, they could have mistrust come up in them, they could see the Trishul behind me or whatever, and then people can just believe whatever they hear just because their own intrinsic mistrust comes up and they attach that to people. What I would suggest is we just see that and don't let it run away with us. And instead we act like a judge of a court of law and we say we will only strongly believe mistrust that has evidence to it. Okay, so there's a bit more nuance you can add there to your own life. But another thing that comes up when you hear a conspiracy theory, another one of the 4 things, these next 2 are related. But it's passion. When you hear that someone did an atrocity, it makes you feel alive and you want to stop it. There's a very famous saying that what human beings actually want is to feel alive. And there's no doubt that hearing a conspiracy theory of an atrocity can make you feel alive. And in that sense, it can be a little bit of a drug. And another thing strongly related to that is it makes us feel righteous. Most people, they want to feel righteous, like they are in the good. And like I mentioned earlier, acting to stop evil is a good thing. That's the aspect of Vishnu and Garuda. If there is evil happening in our domain of influence, I think it's good to step in and stop that. But when we just hear conspiracy theories about Joe Biden or whoever, we just intrinsically feel righteous, we feel passionate and alive, and we feel that strong mistrust. And of course, this is the 4th one on my list. This is very strong. What comes up for us when you hear conspiracy theories is a strong sense of blame. Why is the world not perfect? Why am I not totally happy? Well, it's very easy to point a finger at some political figure or 5G towers or fluoride in the water and so on and so forth. Now, it's very tricky to talk about these topics because maybe someone listening to this strongly believes in 5G. They might strongly believe in fluoride in the water that is bad for us. And the point is there is no strong evidence either way, and it is a bit of a vague topic. Is 5G bad for us? In my personal opinion, as an engineer who knows a little bit of the technology involved with it, it is totally not dangerous to the human being unless perhaps you put your head right next to the signal tower. Is fluoride bad for our brains and our pineal gland? I think there's certainly no evidence, but of course it would be hard to find evidence of that. If it intrinsically makes sense to you that fluoride could be bad for the brain, then just simply stop drinking fluoride water. Definitely it does help with teeth health, that's for sure. And I'm getting on a little bit of a tangent here. Just to maybe give you an example as well, that it's possible for us to look at these conspiracy theories, act appropriately, the best way that we can, but without trying to blame people too much, feeling too self-righteous, and without having our mistrust boil up too much. It is totally possible that fluoride isn't the best for the brain, and there does not need to be an Illuminati behind it. Okay, so a little bit of a tangent there, but let's move on with my little list here. The point as well that's very important here, and this is what people that totally reject conspiracy theories, they miss this. You should, I believe, it's a good thing to act when you can act. When it's in your domain of influence, surely you should act. To give an example, I've been in situations before where I'm with a group of friends and for whatever reason, there's been a bully in the group. One person is bullying another. And in such a case, I have a strong sense within me of saying like, hey, don't bully that. Don't bully that person. And what I've done in the past is I give one warning, and then, because in that particular case I was sort of in control, I kicked out the bully. And doesn't feel good to kick someone out of a social group, but if there's a bully, those dark energies happening, it's good that you act. And let's say, for instance, to be a bit wild, you personally work for the CIA. The CIA, of course, it's very famous because there's a lot of classified work that goes on there. If you witness something that is clearly unethical, then you should blow a whistle, I believe. But sitting around and just theorizing about what's going on in the CIA right now, that doesn't help anyone. There's no real way for us to act. It's too hypothetical. And really, this is another point that I want to mention. What I would really strongly suggest for everyone is not to make conspiracy theories an entertainment. Okay, does that make sense? What I mean by entertainment is coming back home from work and perhaps you're eating something, you're just, having some light entertainment. You could, of course, watch a sitcom, you could watch a documentary, you could watch a musical show. Entertainment. I would strongly suggest that you don't watch conspiracy theories as entertainment, because to me this actually feels wrong at a bodily level. Because we're finding entertainment from atrocities that are just totally unsubstantiated. It is like a horror about the real world that we're just opening our mind to, and this can breed paranoia and a titillation of paranoia even. So that's just my strong recommendation, is don't fall into the trap of having conspiracy theories be entertainment for you. But coming back to the previous point, if there is an actual atrocity happening in your local area within your domain of influence, please do act. And if you're lucky enough, like almost everyone watching this YouTube video, if you think a particular political figure is not acting ethically, then go and vote. I'm kind of astounded that in the USA, I live in Australia, but in the USA there's so much political drama. But I believe, I'll put the stat on screen now, but the voter turnout is something like 50% or less. So, of course, act to vote for the politician which you think is the most ethical and truly righteous politician. Those are just my pieces of advice, but I will also reiterate again that we shouldn't be totally closed, perhaps just to be stereotypical, like too much of a hippie. As a plane flies overhead, I hope the mic can hear me okay. The world, ultimately at its deepest level, the world is goodness. God is goodness. God is guiding the world, and this transformation that's happening within us, an awakening of some sorts is happening over time. But we shouldn't be totally closed to the dark energies that exist in the world. We should protect ourselves. When it's within our domain of influence, we should act to stop other evil. Politically, we should vote for policies which we encourage that do not have darkness associated with them. So, for instance, you might vote for parties that do not want to promote war in a foreign country for oil or whatever it might be. The specifics are very challenging, and there's a very famous quote that's come up throughout history. I'll put the quote on screen and maybe try and find the source. But the first casualty of war is truth, as they say. And this is what makes conspiracy theories tricky. What is truth? What is evidence? It's so hard to say. We don't have it all in front of us. We need to act with the best information that we can. But I would strongly encourage us to notice when we hear a conspiracy theory, those 4 things I mentioned. Let's see if I can remember them. Of course, we want to blame people. We want to feel righteous. We feel passionate and alive. And what was the first? Of course, we feel distrust. Notice those things come up when we hear a conspiracy theory. And don't get too caught into it. Don't use it as entertainment. Let's not feel too self-righteous about it. And my final word on this topic is, with so much bad energy indeed out there in the world, perhaps controlling money, perhaps causing wars, it can be distressing. It can be genuinely distressing to sensitive people, to heart-centered people, to see that happening. What do we do about that? First of all, we allow and accept it. We meditate. We feel those emotions. And if you're a bit more spiritually inclined, you can contemplate the topic of karma. But what I would strongly encourage is that you spend the vast majority of your personal energy not focusing on the darkness of life, but doing something healthy, whatever healthy is to you, meditation or yoga, perhaps using psychedelics responsibly for awakening, pursuing nirvana, doing kriya practices. Perhaps it's even something like charity work or volunteering or traveling or getting fit, getting your diet in control, eating ethically, not eating meat that is produced in a unethical way. There's so many things that we can personally act on and do that is healthy for the world.